And welcome back to Nancy's Neighborhood. And we've had a really good day today. And if you all noticed, I had on a lovely necklace when this started. But Bryce is over there when I was interviewing Joe, making these signals to me that I couldn't figure out what he was trying to tell me. And what he was trying to tell me was my necklace kept hitting the microphone, so I had to take my necklace off, which I was surprised I made it through 2 guests and some announcements before he smacked my hands and told me to take my necklace off. But anyway, my insurance agent is on today, and that's Byron Winters, and he's with Landmark Insurance.
Landmark Insurance Group.
Landmark Insurance Group. And the reason I asked Byron to come on today is about 3 years ago I had you on a show with me, and we talked about replacement insurance. And the person that was co-hosting with me that day immediately ran out and called her insurance agent after we had that conversation, because she said, I know I'm insured.
She didn't call me, though.
You weren't her agent. I'm so sorry. I think she was Farm Bureau, but that's okay. All right. But anyway, she said, I know I'm insured, but I don't know that I'm insured for replacement. And what made me think about this, because I think when you and I talked about it before, it was maybe right after the tornadoes.
I believe it was.
And so now, it didn't hit us, folks, but Hurricane Matthew just went up the coast. And I just wanted us to talk a little bit about replacement insurance, Byron. So kind of give us an explanation of what replacement insurance as opposed to just insurance is.
Right. So in the world of insurance, property insurance specifically, you have several options, and a lot of people don't know they have several options. So you have actual cash value, which is the, you might say, depreciated value of property you own, so a home or personal possessions, and they take into account not only the purchase price, but when did you purchase that item? So how long ago, and what's its value today? Which, you know, as a female, you have a lot of stuff that you probably paid
I do have stuff,
some
yes,
significant money 4 years ago, and it's not necessarily worth a lot today, but it is to you. So if you were to go to replace that, you would want replacement cost so that you could get something brand new, or a new version of whatever you had. And so if people don't ask and they're only looking for price, actual cash value is going to be cheaper. Not always a lot cheaper, but cheaper. And so replacement cost a little bit more. You know, for my clients, we generally don't have this conversation. I generally just give them replacement cost because most people want replacement cost.
Absolutely.
But there are some people that will get insurance and think that they've got what they need, and when something bad happens, they don't have what they need.
All right, and let me ask you this. Now, if, let's say someone built a house 15 years ago, and they insured it then, and they just insured it for what they built the house for, can they come back to you or anyone else and say, look, my house is now, I built it for 120 and now it's 225. Can you do something with that?
So there's several factors that go into that. Yeah, in short, yes.
Okay.
There's several factors. If there's a bank involved, they're going to typically make sure they have replacement costs because they want their investment protected.
Gotcha.
So if you have a mortgage, you're more than likely going to have a good enough policy, you might say. Every few years, most carriers do like an inflation increase, so somewhere between 2 and 4%, maybe a carrier will increase the value of your home, or the coverage of your home. And some people say, well, I don't want that increase, and sometimes we can lower that back to what they wanted. And then other times, you know, folks may want a little more coverage. So it's always good after a number of years to kind of review your insurance. I mean, every year is certainly good, but certainly every few years, kind of look and see what you've got, and make sure that you haven't acquired some fine jewelry, some antiques, or some guns, or some furs and things that might have to be itemized, listed on the policy.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask about. So all of that stuff needs to be itemized.
Not all stuff, so talk to your agent.
Okay, talk to my agent.
Every few years, you know, most of us typically, hopefully, we have more money and more possessions. We acquire more things over time. And so you want to make sure your policy coverages are adequate for what you have. Because when you first moved to Cleveland from Athens, right? Is that okay?
Very
so,
good,
you know, I remember some things, not everything, but some things. And so you had X, but now years later you have a lot more. And so your circumstances have changed. And of course, several years ago we looked at your stuff and helped you there. So you're probably great, but it wouldn't hurt to come and look and see what you have and talk to someone in the office. And
I'll leave that up to y'all. You just look at it and tell me what I need. You know,
last time I saw you had replacement costs. So unless you called and said, "Hey, we don't want replacement costs anymore,"
no, because after we had that talk about replacement right after the tornadoes, which did not physically affect me or my property. But right after we had that talk, I thought, oh goodness, people need to know that replacement value on something is different from just having regular insurance.
All right, there's insurance and then there's different types of coverages and whatnot. So several years back, you'll recall, some people lost their homes and didn't
Yes.
have any insurance.
Oh, no, that's
right?
not good. That's not
or
good.
some people lost a roof and had actual cash value on their roof, so they didn't get a new roof. They got some money towards a new roof, but not the entire roof.
Not replacement value.
I have a friend I spoke with in the Virginia Beach area here recently, and they
Oh,
got hit
gosh.
by
Yes,
the
they
hurricane,
did.
right? And a lot of flood, a lot of water was there. And he looked at some homes. They were getting ready to purchase a home, and one of the homes he looked at was not in a flood zone, but it was certainly flooded. So that's another thing, is that if you have a bank involved, they're going to want to make sure that you have flood insurance if you're in a flood zone. But even if you're not in the flood zone, it doesn't mean something couldn't happen. And a lot of those folks are kind of
They're hurt.
They're out in the wind.
Mhm,
Yeah,
they are. And see, that was another question I was going to ask you about flood insurance, because, you know, I'm over on the river, but I'm behind the 692, so I shouldn't have any problem unless the Chickamauga Dam breaks, folks, and then I've got a lot of problem, but so does everybody else. But when we first started building over there, we were told that we needed flood insurance because we were in a floodplain. Well, we're not, and so we got that, you know, TVA helped us with that, so because we're not in a floodplain. But there are some people who, in East Tennessee, do we need flood insurance?
There are a lot of folks in the floodplains around here, and so you really need to. There's a couple of factors, I guess. You know, number one, if you have a mortgage, the bank is going to want you to have it if you're in a flood zone, right? And then I guess number two, even if you're not in a flood zone, how close are you to a waterway, and how are you down in a valley kind of somewhere, or are you up on a hill, or it's everybody's risk tolerance is a little different.
I know,
You know,
and
so
I'm up on a hill and the Hiwassee River is right down there, but like I say, I'm good unless Chickamauga Dam busts, and then
So
then
I don't
I'm
want to
not
go on
good.
record saying you don't need flood insurance. I'm going to say we need to talk about your risk tolerance.
But I do have replacement value on my insurance, and that's what I want everybody to be aware of today, because some of these people may need to call their insurance agent today or tomorrow and say, do I have replacement insurance?
Right. So if you have golf clubs or a musical instrument or furs or jewelry, then think about if that stuff got gone. And I hope it doesn't happen to you, but if it got
Right.
gone, could you replace it? And or what would that cost? And then what is your policy? Because policies also have limits of coverage, you know that. And typically personal property is a percentage of the replacement cost or the dwelling coverage on your home policy. But then there's also sub-limits. Most carriers limit the amount of dollars they'll give you for jewelry, or the amount they'll give you for guns, or the amount they'll give you for furs or fine china or art. You know, so there's musical instruments, all these things we have, and just because you have, you know, $100,000 in property coverage doesn't mean you can use that exactly how you might want to use it.
Right.
Now something else though, if you lost everything, could you tell me what all you have?
Kind of, sort of.
Some of it, right?
Right.
So everyone needs to have, and I'm talking to myself too, everyone needs to have what they call a home inventory list. So whether it's pictures or video or just an itemized list of what you have. And that's going to take some people quite a bit of time to put that together, but the carriers in the event of a loss will give you some time. But I mean, you can be pretty traumatized if you just lost your house and all your possessions, right?
Absolutely.
But you were okay, your family was okay, but all your stuff was gone. You're not going to be in the right frame of mind probably for quite some time to start thinking about all that you had. And given enough time, you probably still couldn't come up with it all.
You're right.
We forget.
And I have a friend who videoed every room in her house. And at first I thought, well, this is the silliest thing I ever heard of. But she scanned around and did every room in her house, and so that she'd get the furniture and what was on the walls and all of that, so she would have an inventory. It's a video inventory of what's in the house.
And even then, they're going to want to know what was it and how much did you pay for it. You know, so something's better than nothing, but you can't have enough. You really can't have too much detail.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
you're not. What's not going to happen? Your carrier is not going to say, "Hey, here's a check for $100,000 because you had $100,000 of property. Go get whatever you need." That's not what's going to happen. They're going to want to know what you had, so they can start doing the math and give you a check up to that limit.
Okay, now let me ask you this. You're talking about jewelry and furs and guns and everything. Do you need an appraisal on those for your insurance?
Some of that stuff you will need an appraisal. Every carrier is a little bit different. So if jewelry exceeds X thousand dollars, maybe $3,500 or $5,000 or maybe $7,000, those are just example limits. So talk to your agent certainly, but over a certain dollar amount, you will need some appraisals to back up the value. And so talk to your agent, and they can tell you what you need appraisals for and help you get it.
Okay, and that's always good to know, folks, because, I mean, you can't just say, I had a fur coat or something like that, because you need to know how much that fur coat was worth. And I'm not really sure where you go to get some of these appraisals, but I do know, I told you all that Garden Plaza is having an appraisal, and they're going to do some jewelry, and I don't know about guns, but they're going to do some antiques. And so that might help you if you need to go get some appraisals. And I don't know whether they give you a piece of paper or anything there about that appraisal. But
and not every type of property is going to need an appraisal. Clothing probably not, but you certainly need to know what it was, what was the brand. If a businessman has Armani suits, that's a lot different than somebody that went down to JCPenney or Belk or somewhere and got
absolutely
Hager or something different. So you need to know what you have and what you paid. And if you have some documentation, you should be okay on some of that stuff. But fine art and antiques and musical instruments and jewelry, certain jewelry, they're not just going to take your word for it. They want to see.
All right, now let me ask you this real quickly, because we're about to run into commercial time again. But if I have that list and it's in my house and my house burns, I've not done anything, have I? So what do you suggest?
Don't keep the list in your house.
Okay.
A safety deposit box. There's lots of online solutions to back things up. As an insurance agent, if a client gets an appraisal for a ring or something, I like to keep a copy in my file.
Good.
So if they have a problem as their agent, I say, hey, well, listen, I've got an appraisal for that ring you bought your wife or whatever, and here it is. So it's not always up to them. I can help myself, and your agent probably could too.
Fantastic, because I was just thinking about that when you were saying make a list and everything. I'm thinking, okay, I make this list, and all of a sudden the basement's flooded, and the list happened to be in a cabinet down in the basement or something like that. So
and videotapes, VHS years ago when they had that type, that stuff goes bad, and so now it's digital files and whatnot, and so you might need to put it on a DVD or an electronic file, of some sort. So.
Byron, thank you so much, because I think replacement insurance is very important, folks. And I found that out when the tornado came through here. And now I just happened to think about it the other day with Hurricane Matthew, because a lot of people may not have had replacement value. So Byron's with Landscape Insurance Group, but there are other insurance agents in town. I just happen to know Byron because he's my insurance agent. So be sure you check, folks, make phone calls today or tomorrow and find out if you have replacement value insurance on your property. And it's been a good day today, folks, and we've had a great group of guests. So be sure you support our sponsors, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.